RM Sotheby's is the world's largest collector car auction house by total sales. They are the preeminent market maker of high-quality collector cars and collections, regardless of size or complexity. By working in partnership with the Sotheby's team and its network of 80 offices in 40 countries, RM Sotheby's has established the largest client network of any collector car auction house in the world. Join the RM Sotheby's family by connecting with one of their car specialists at rmsotheby's.com or contact me directly at GStanley at rmsotheby's.com. LLC TLC is here to save you money on all of your vehicle purchases. LLC TLC will permanently register your classic cars in Montana to avoid any annual renewal fees. As your registered agent, they will handle everything for you so you never have to step foot in Montana. And as a listener of this podcast, LLC TLC is offering 30% off your entire package. Simply go to llctlc.com/classic or mention this podcast when you contact LLC TLC directly. Welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. Hey, it's Greg Stanley. This is going to be a fun one. We're talking about the Dare to Dream collection for RM Sotheby's that's being on offer beginning May 31st. This is an incredible collection. And to help us review it a little bit, this is actually going to be a multi-part episode because we got Automobilia and sneakers. So be sure to stay tuned for that. But I'd like to welcome Gord Duff. Gord, how you doing?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate it. Now, I know that this collection's got a lot of press because it's quite a collection, great cars in it. But I wanted to find out from your perspective, kind of walk us through how this thing came to be. Because if I remember correctly, it was a great relationship with RM Sotheby's where you helped curate quite a few of these cars. Is that right?
Yeah, I met Miles back in like around 2010. I just happened to be up in Toronto one weekend and we were connected and went over and met him. And at the time he had, probably 20-ish cars, but, more some 50s, 60s American cars, some late model Bentleys, Jaguars, Aston Martins, but nothing of the caliber that he ended up building over the last 13, 14 years. And we kind of got a good relationship going together, and he became curious on various different makes and models, and a 300 SL Roadster in Galway turned into a Daytona Coupe, turned into a Lusso, to a 4Cam, and then he just kind of started building out to what everybody sees today.
So is it kind of like he went down these different rabbit trails, or did he ask you, hey, I want the most iconic cars ever. What do you recommend? Like, how'd that go?
He had ideas. He had seen cars and would come to me and ask, what do you think about X or Y, 300 SL or Galway. He really wanted, he was really liked Ralph Lauren's collection. So that kind of started it with the Galway, because then he ended up purchasing one and then had it painted and trimmed out just like his. And then I think it evolved. He came to a few auctions, started seeing different cars, and then it just, snowballed from there, where he'd, call up and just be like, I'd like to buy an F40. Do you, know of any for sale, or could you go find me one? And it just kind of started happening with that. And I think probably after, I don't know if the F40 was the first one, and then it was, like many collectors we have, they kind of, okay, I need to go out and get the set. So then it kind of gets into the 288 and the F50, and before you know it, he had all of them. And then, different Porsches. He's got some great Porsches from the 80s, some great Porsches from the 50s and the 70s. But I think it just evolved where he'd call up and I'd like a 73 RS. And I was like, okay, would you like a touring or a lightweight? And he's like, what's the difference? Right. And we just kind of explained it like that, and what I think he would be better into, and obviously on that, he went with the touring route versus the lightweight, just being more of a driver's type car. But anytime he was traveling, he would ask if there was collections around he could go see. So I would get him set up if he was in Florida, if he was in California, if he was in Texas, where he could start to go see other people's collections and museums. And, that was at the time where he bought the building he's in now and started redoing it and kind of evolving his collection. And, he's got great stuff from his Detroit Electric to, Honda S600, but it's a cheap car, but it's the best one I've ever seen. So even, on the smaller things, his Messerschmitt, great colors, high quality restorations. He went out and tried to find, or we found the best example of a model that he was into wanting to, collect. And there was a few of my friends that helped him as well curating his cars, but yeah, he built it into a really interesting collection where I think it's definitely all the stuff that people are wanting in today's buying habits.
Yeah, and it's very eclectic. I noticed quite a few military vehicles, motorcycles, race cars, tribute cars, just a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah, when he got into the museum idea, he wanted like there's a section in there that was all for race cars. So he wanted to go out and he bought a few great driven NASCARs. He bought a funny car. He bought a drag car, and then some of the other iconic cars. He didn't want to go out and buy a 917, but he wanted a replica that looked like it, so that when people came through the museum, there was kind of something for everyone. So there's a portion of the collection, just like the military vehicles, will be selling a smaller group online, but the main best of the best stuff will be sold live on the Saturday, June 1st, and then the online stuff will finish on Monday, June 3rd, along with over 200 lots of memorabilia. We're selling about 100 lots during the live sale, and then the remainder of it will be via online.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and it is a deep collection. So you mentioned the big five Ferraris. That's always a key thing in a lot of folks' dream garage is having the big five Ferraris. But he also has the 2005 Maserati MC12. So the Maserati version of, I believe that was the Enzo, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Older Ferrari 275, but also the Lamborghini Miura, but not only any Miura, but the SV. So he not only picked a great model car, but he picked the best version of it, right?
Yeah, that was something that I helped him out with. That obviously he had the means to go out and buy the best. So if you're buying a Miura, why not go after and buy the best, buy an SV, just like his four cam, or his Daytona coupe that he owns. He bought that from us at auction probably 8 or 9 years ago, and at the time I said it's the best one I've ever seen, but I said be prepared to pay world record money to own that car, and at the time he did. And funny enough, within 12 months there was cars selling for more than that, but he stepped up when he needed to buy the best of the best. And it's definitely the way to go, because everything's the best of the best are still bringing the highest prices today, and he'll end up, funny enough, doing that car will do really well, even compared to the last time it sold when it was world record.
Right, right. Yep. Now, I do have a question. What is one of your favorite cars? Because you've got a different taste here in the collection. I mean, there's an old 57 Mercedes-Benz 300 SC cab. I know you like some of the even older stuff. What really caught your attention in that collection?
There's so much good stuff in there, so it's kind of hard to pick. I like, older cars normally than more of the late model stuff, but I really like his 356 Speedster. I love the colors on it. It's rare colors. It's a matching engine car. The RS Touring's another favorite of mine. Those are, probably two of the picks for me that I like the most out of there. And obviously I love all the supercars. The 288 GTO is kind of my favorite out of all of them. But and the Lusso is really interesting too, because that car was imported into Canada in like the late 60s. So that car's been in the Toronto area for, almost 60 years, 55 years, something like that. And it was cool original colors. I think it was actually a gold with a maroon interior. I mean, it's now maroon with a black interior, but I think somebody buying that car, and if there were specifically a Canadian out there, it'd be cool to keep that
Yeah.
thing around here, but paint it back to its original colors. That's probably my favorite Ferrari out of all of them. Just I like the history on cars and stuff, and that's kind of a unique one in my mind.
Yeah, and it's really cool that you built this relationship up, and obviously there's a big level of trust in building this collection. But I'm curious, did you turn them off of anything? Is there an example where you're like, man, don't buy that? That is not something you want in your collection.
Um, yeah, can't remember. I would probably turn them off buying an average example to buy the best example, or like you mentioned with the talking about the SV, like don't just buy a Mura 400. Like you have the means, so go out and buy the best one, and you'll always be fine buying the best one. So there would be things if they weren't matching or quality wasn't quite there, I'd be like, just sit tight and let's wait, let's find a better example. And if you have to pay 50 grand too much for the best one, you'll be better off long term than buying an average one, and then going through fixing it or whatever. So there would have been things more so on condition. If his mind was made up that he wanted a specific type of car, I never kind of talked him out of it. It was just more of, okay, let's dig around and see if we can find the best one we can.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's always interesting when someone sells their entire collection, especially when it includes like chairs and other stuff. Do you feel like, this is kind of a passion that's run its course, or do you feel like, he might be moving up to the, instead of having a 917 replica, maybe get a real 917?
He's keeping some of the cars he really likes to drive, more so the later model stuff. I think that, he really enjoyed building the collection out, building the museum, setting it all up, having, different events and friends through and stuff. But it definitely is a lot of work. There's a lot of staff that you need to have on site to manage something like this. And I think he just got to a point in life that he probably had more fun building it than, owning it.
Yep.
Yeah. And he just kind of wanted to simplify things and, okay, I'm going to keep, 20 cars that are more newer stuff I like to drive. And, this was great. And he'll always have the memory and the photos and everything of like, this is something he did in his lifetime. And now he's just kind of ready to, move on, and he collects different types of stuff. But I think, everybody goes through different phases of their life, and he went through the having the car collection. And I think a lot of people don't realize until they have it how much work it is, to look
Right.
after it and maintain it and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we've had a good relationship for a long time. So it was a pretty easy couple conversations for us to come to an agreement and have us be the company to sell it. And we've sold more of these collections that include other things than cars than all other auction companies combined. I mean, we've probably been doing it for 25 years now, and I don't know how many collections we've sold over that time, but we've got a knack for being able to do these and sell them well.
That's awesome. That's great. All right. So for my listeners, stay tuned. I'm going to pick my 5 top favorite cars out of this. I'll review some of the Automobilia, and Thatcher will be on board to talk about the shoes and give us kind of a 101 on this incredible shoe collection. So Gord, thanks for being on the Collector Car Podcast.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, before we get to Thatcher, I do have a couple of cool things I wanted to share with you from the Automobilia, as well as my 5 favorite cars that we have not already talked about. So the first is the Steve McQueen Golf custom painted Porsche hood. Now the estimate is $2,000 to $4,000. Normally I'm not a hood art kind of guy, but this one is very cool because it's got the iconic Golf colors. It's got a black and white photograph of Steve McQueen with his autograph. That would be very cool to have hanging on anyone's wall in their garage or their office. The next thing I thought was really cool, I'm not a Formula One nose cone guy, but this is a really cool Ferrari 248 nose cone. It's got the iconic livery on it, red Shell Oil Fiat Ferrari Martini, and the estimate on this one is $3,000 to $5,000. Now the next one is a motorcycle. So back when I bought my very first only motorcycle, it was an SV650. This is what I wanted, a 2001 Ducati 996R, estimates $20,000 to $30,000. Only 500 produced, and this one only has 335 miles on it. That is exactly what I wanted when I got my first motorcycle, but I would have killed myself, so I'm glad I did not get that. Now, from a car perspective, I love this 2013 Dodge SRT Viper GTS. Now, I like this one because it's in the iconic blue from the first generation of the GTS, blue with white stripes. This one's $100,000 to $130,000, just showing just over 3,000 miles on it. The next car is one of my all-time favorites, 1965 Shelby GT350 white with the blue racing stripes, $325 to $375 offered without reserve. One of only 562 ever built, and this is number 226. All right, just a couple more I wanted to do a shout out on. 1971 Mercedes-Benz 380 SE 3.5 Cabriolet, $250 to $325,000. This one's incredible. It's in tobacco brown with beige upholstery with a dark brown fabric top. Absolutely stunning, beautiful. Would love to see that in my garage one day. And then two more. 1985 Aston Martin V8 Vantage Coupe. I don't normally talk about anything from the 1980s, but this Aston Martin is stunningly gorgeous. Estimates $225,000 to $300,000. The ultimate true V8 Vantage and high performance European specification. Very, very nice. And the last one you might find is quite interesting. I know I love it. 1930 Bugatti Type 35B recreation by Persang. So the real ones of these are a couple $1,000,000. Well, you can have this one for $180,000 to $240,000. And this is exactly like the original with some slight upgrades for drivability and reliability. I just think it'd be so awesome to drive one of these around and feel what a true sports car felt like back in the 1930s. So that's just a couple things. Now let's find out what Thatcher has to say about these incredible sneakers coming up for sale at the Dare to Dream collection.
All right, so for this last part of the Dare to Dream collection, it's all about sneakers. And I do not know much about sneakers, but we have someone at RM Sotheby's that does. So Thatcher, how you doing today?
Good, Greg. How are you doing?
Good, good. I'm so thrilled you're on the show. You're a three-peat, I think, now for the Collect a Car
Yeah, I
podcast.
think so.
So thanks for that. Yep. Thank you for that. So I know you like sneakers. I know you know a lot more about them than I do. So could you kind of give my listeners kind of a 101, assume they know nothing about sneakers, and why the ones on offer in the Dare to Dream collection are so special?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a bit of a sneakerhead myself, even before this collection, but now I've been inundated with Nike Jordan 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, all the way up to 23. So yeah. The collection itself is it's, for lack of a better term, mind-blowing. There is not another collection of sneakers in the world that has been amassed of what Miles has done. He's got primarily all samples, PEs, friends and family shoes, which, to explain that, means if you go to a shoe store like Finish Line or Foot Locker or Dick's Sporting Goods or any place like that sells shoes, those are your general release shoes. So those are, off the shelf. There's millions of pairs made. Miles has what they call samples, friends and family, or promos. So these are batches of shoes that Nike would make for celebrities, collaborations with high-end fashion houses, to where they'd only do a run of sometimes 10, sometimes only 4 pairs were ever made in the world. So, like a prime example of those, he has a pair of the Air Jordan 1 Colettes, which are an exclusive streetwear store that was based in Paris that was open for 10 years, and they made this sample for the employees of the store. And they're some of the most coveted Air Jordan made by Nike shoes that are available. Well, they're not available, but they are at this auction. Another cool pair that he has a pair of Wahlburgers, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is the Wahlberg's burger store, and they kind of did the same thing. It was a super limited special edition sneaker that was made for employees, and they were given out by Wahlberg himself. So they were friends and family shoe. That's where that comes from. And they were given out, and it was part of a charity event that they did. So they sold these shoes that Nike made for them as a charity promotion, and as your charity donation, you got this pair of shoes. So they're worth about $30,000 as they sit.
Yeah, the only correlation I have at all to the car world is kind of like getting a Ferrari SP2 Monza or something. Like you got to hit these certain hurdles, and it's invite only, and that's the only thing I can think of.
That's exactly right. That's exactly the same thing. It's the same way for most of the Travis Scott shoes. So Travis Scott's a very famous rapper in the music industry right now, and he has a deal with Nike, and he makes these super limited shoes, and they're called Travis Scott Friends and Family, and you have to know Travis to get a pair. And to see them out in a collection or out in the wild is unbelievably rare, because Travis himself has most of them, and to get your hands on a pair of them it's hard. And if you can, they're very expensive. We're talking 5-figure pairs of shoes, which
Wow.
is crazy.
So these are shoes you and I aren't going out and buying unless it's at RM Sotheby's auction.
Right.
How are they different in manufacturing from the one that we can buy? Is it different thread? Is it different colors? Is there some fun little trinkets added to it, like an Uggs? I don't know. How are they different?
So long story short is yes to all of your questions. They're usually made with higher end leather samples, different materials. They're in exclusive colorways, and colorways being the different colors used on the shoes. They're usually the only shoes that are made in these colors. They come in special edition boxes. They usually have special hang tags that come on them. They usually have stickers or t-shirts, special cases. They're very one-off things that Nike makes, and that's really rare for a company of their size to do. So anytime they produce something that's so special like this, it comes with a high premium.
So if you think your paint to sample Porsche is rare, it's got nothing on these shoes, right?
Yeah, if you think your paint to sample white frost black wheel Porsche is rare, don't let me know when you get a pair of Travis Scotts with the flight case. Then we'll talk.
There you go. All right, so you mentioned a couple pairs of shoes that stood out. So if you could walk away, let's say with 2 different pairs of shoes for your personal collection, what would they be and why?
Well, I'm a Jordan Low fan. So there's the Jordan OG highs, which are like the 1985 high tops. I like the low cut ones that are like below your ankle. And there's 2 pairs there that I really like. One of them is the Jordan 1 Low Dior version. So it was a collaboration with the fashion house Dior. And the bottom soles of the shoe are a transparent frost color, like they're kind of clear blue icy. And within that, it says Dior across the bottom of the shoe. And the Nike swoosh on the side is a swatch from a Dior handbag.
Oh, that's cool.
I really like those. Those are a really famous shoe. The other one is a Travis Scott Jordan 1 Low, which is in collaboration with Travis Scott, Nike, and this streetwear company called Fragment. So it's a Fragment design Travis Scott Nike Air Jordan 1 Low. And they're very rare. They're very expensive. They're all solid leather. They're a beautiful shoe. But those would be the two that I would go away with.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, if you know me, I don't play basketball. My dad tried to set me up to play basketball, but when I was 10, he put the hoop at regulation height. So there's no chance I would ever get inspired to play. And then he parked his van underneath it. So I never played. Anyways, long story short, I would still go after the very first year of Air Jordans just because they're so iconic. That would be one of my picks.
The 85s.
Yeah. And then my second pick would have to be the Back to the Future shoes, because there's quite a few of those, right?
Yeah. The mags.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big moon boots.
Yeah. I'd have to go those.
Those are pretty wild.
Yeah. It doesn't come with a hoverboard, does it?
It does not, but they do have really cool cases that they come in. Fun story about the mags. There's a pair of 2011 Nike mags in the collection, which are the very first iteration of these boots that Nike made. And they are not self-lacing, but they have lights and buttons, and they do the same effect. But the pair from 2016, it's the same looking shoe. It's the big Nike moon boot, but they are actually self-lacing. They have they have little motors in the bottom of the shoes, and they have buttons on the top. And you push the button, and it sucks the laces down around your foot. And then if you want to take them off, you push the opposite way, and it undoes the laces. So they actually are self-lacing shoes, just like the movie.
That's the ones I would want. That's what I would go after for sure. Self-lacing. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, if any of the listeners want to check these offerings out, I'll have the description or the link in the description. RM Sotheby's. You can check out the Dare to Dream collection. Plenty of cool stuff. Is there anything from the Automobilia that caught your eye that you wouldn't mind having?
Yeah, I always like building models when I was a kid. So whenever we get a collection of amalgam models, it always piques my interest. And he's got the entire collection of Ralph Lauren's amalgam models. So he has every car in Ralph's collection, and they're all displayed together. It's a pretty impressive display of models to see. So I kind of nerd out when I see stuff like that.
Yeah, Amalgam does incredible work, as we know. So
Yeah.
Well, awesome, Thatcher. Appreciate it. Thanks for being on the Collector Car Podcast and covering Sneakers 101.
No problem, Greg. Always good to be here.